Everyone, good morning. Welcome to Betsperts Golf. Ryan Noonan here for a little first look at the 2026 RBC Canadian Open. TPC Toronto coming off of a fantastic weekend of golf and trending into a fantastic week of golf. Today is golf's longest day. If you're not familiar, there's 10 U.S. Open qualifying sites around the country, actually 9. And then one in Canada, which makes sense. Hosting U.S. Open qualifying, last chance for some guys to get in outside of, a really solid performance or even a win here in Canada. But last chance for a lot of people to punch their ticket, wall-to-wall coverage, I think, on the Golf Channel. So great day for golf coming off of a fantastic memorial. As always, kudos to JT Poston. It's a huge life-changing win for someone like that. It's awesome to see. Really secures his schedule and bags for the next handful of years. So really, really cool. And obviously Nelly winning at Riviera, the ladies side for the women's LPGA US Open. It's awesome. Getting Riv on the TV in June is a treat and a delight, and being on the West Coast. So you can kind of multi-view it for a little bit there and then kind of shift in once, Poston sealed the deal for the memorial. Is awesome. And then again, we're a week away from Shinnecock Hills and the men's side for the U.S. Open. So nice little piece on the golf schedule here this week. And hopefully RBC Canadian Open delivers as well. So year 2 of TPC Toronto. Last year we were flying blind a little bit. Felt like we had a feel for a little bit. And it's tricky when we have these situations where we don't know in terms of, we haven't seen, pro golf on that course. I think there are kind of one or two ways to do it, kind of spread in terms of like stylistic golfer archetypes, and kind of cover yourself a little bit. But last year it felt like a Bombers card. And I built a Bombers card and we got home with, Ryan Fox as a Bomber. So, I think you can get away with not being a Bomber here, but, your wedge game's got to be pristine. It's such a huge advantage to be able to push it out there here on this pretty long par 70. So I still think that that's probably the best way to go about it. Now, again, we only have 1 year of data. So I think there might be an edge, maybe even in like DFS, where I think you'll see some ownership driven up, especially down like, say mid sevens and below on guys that can hit it far. I think there might be an edge in finding some, wedge guys, some guys that can, keep the ball in play off the tee and give themselves, a lot of really good birdie looks with solid, say sub 150 proximity and approach stuff. So, but from an outright standpoint, I'm still going to lean pretty heavily on Bombers here. Let's take a look at some stuff here. I'll pop it up on the site. Well, we'll do this first. Get my mug out of here. A lot of you subscribe or watch the show and aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel. Greatly appreciated if you went ahead and fixed that, hit the subscribe button, thumbs up, all those things genuinely really do support the show and allow us to do and build a lot of really cool tools. We're going to continue to do so. We're building some stuff right now that I'm excited to get live for you guys. So those little things do a lot to help support us. Go ahead and take a second, hit those thumbs up. So probably even more of you are not subscribed to Betsperts Golf. There are a handful of really cheap ways to do it if you want to just kind of try it out for the first time. On the screen is our deal with Novig. It's a great deal. Check it out. It's on the site. Again, you get over to betspertsgolf.com. You could see it, but simply use promo code BSG if you were signing up for a Novig account. Again, Novig is going to give you more outs to bet as well. If you're looking for, better numbers on a Monday morning or, anything that you're looking to bet on, it is a sports trading platform. It's available in over 35 states. Use promo code BSG, deposit $5 on Novig. That's it, $5. They're going to give you an additional $50 and a promo code via email of how to access Betsperts Golf for no additional charge. That's it. No small print. That is it. Basically, $5 out of your pocket is going to give you $55 to play on Novig and get you Betsperts Golf for free. So insane deal. Check it out. We also right now have a deal this week only promo code Canada gets you Betsperts Golf for $1 for the week. Promo code Canada. So if you happen to be in a state where you can't take advantage of the no big deal, maybe you've already taken advantage of the no big deal. I don't know. Like you got a buddy and you're telling him about it and he doesn't want to pony up $5. Hey, I got a deal for you for $1. Promo code Canada, betspertsgolf.com/plans. Promo code Canada. Your first week is $1. That's it. So check it out. Take advantage. Those are great, great offers. Again, $5 for an entire year is an insane deal. Typically costs $250, and I think we're too cheap, to be honest, at $250. So really, really, really recommend looking at this and taking advantage. All right, let's look here first at the odds board and kind of see who's in the field. Courtesy of our friends here over at 4for4, Sharp Stack. Another great resource if you love betting on sports. Lots of different cool tools here. Sharp Stack, including an odds board. Let me see if I can, everyone that's got some odds up right now, I can kind of slide these over so we can kind of take a look here at what we have to look at. Pretty decent field. Considering it, some guys just like to play the week before a major. And again, if that's the case, those guys are here. They are playing before we go to Shinnecock. So Tommy Fleetwood, very much in the mix last week at Memorial. He's here kind of roughly around 12-1 best price. Matt Fitzpatrick here as well. Same number best in market on Fitz, right around 12. Sam Burns, again, also very much in contention, was in contention here last year. Is in contention last week at Memorial, as long as 15. Colin Morikawa. Don't know what to make of Colin Morikawa right now. 22 in this field probably feels long, but I feel like there's like baby bump stuff going on. I don't know if because again, we don't get a lot of reporting on this stuff. It's also, I guess, theoretically none of our business, but I know that Morikawas are expecting. I don't know where his game's at. I don't know what's going on with Morikawa, but right now, 22. Bobby Mack is high as 25. Wyndham Clark absolutely seems like he's got it back. Wyndham Clark, 25, best in market right now. Brooks Koepka, 28. Justin Rose is here as well at 28. Chris Wrighton, again, in contention a little bit last week at Memorial, playing really good golf, as high as 32. Shane Lowry showed up well on the weekend at Memorial at 32 as well. JT Poston, there's some bigger numbers on Poston. I haven't even seen if he's WD'd here. I think he probably has, because he's, again, he was going to be playing today in the U.S. Open qualifying because he did not have his ticket punched to Shinnecock Hills, but now he does and has lots of exemptions over the next handful of years. Good for him. Nikolai Hojgaard here is high as 35. Michael Thor Bjornsson as well, right around 35. Hovland, 35. Noren, 36. Keith Mitchell at 40. Alex Fitzpatrick, 43. Harry Hall, Jacob Bridgman, Aaron Rye, Ryan Fox, Eric Cole, Nick Taylor, Michael Brennan, Sai Thagala, all kind of right around 50. It's a pretty big tier there, and then you start to drop off a little bit. You got some of the Canucks at some bigger numbers. Taylor Pendrith, as high as 60. Corey Connors, excuse me, as high as 75, which is a big number for Connors. But he's kind of been in the wilderness a little bit, has not dug in a little bit on the Connors thing. I'm like, it's not pretty. Graceman here, been playing pretty good golf. So interesting fields and a course where we do think distance is going to matter. Let's take a look a little bit about what we have. Again, single year sample here of what we saw at TPC Toronto, Osprey Valley, North Course. Again, hilarious that it's TPC Toronto. Obviously the locals, Mayo and company will tell you it's hilarious that it's been, it has the TPC Toronto name because it's a solid hour north of Toronto. And, with traffic. But again, Golf Canada has relocated their headquarters there. It makes sense. And this is year 2. I think they only had a 2-year contract. So I don't know what they're doing next year. Maybe it comes back. We did have a little bit of a Canadian Open rotation. And again, the Canadian guys will tell you there's probably some lovely golf in like Western Canada. Like, get out there, get out like to the Rockies. Let's get out to like Banff. Let's get out to Alberta and British Columbia. I want to see some, like, I don't know, some cool tracks out there. Obviously, logistics are can be different, but especially now we have to go. You wouldn't want to necessarily go to British Columbia and then have to come all the way back to the East Coast in the week that next week when we have the U.S. Open. So I get it, but selfishly, new schedule and stuff. Let's explore Canada a little bit. Let's see some new things. Anyway, it's a long par 70, almost 7,400 yards. Again, par 70. So we have some long par fives on the scorecard. Played easy last year. We'll look at the scoring conditions. I think it played like at least a stroke and a half under par. Not a lot of water danger, not a lot of bunkering. Green speeds are pretty average in terms of green size. We have bent fairways, bluegrass rough. A little bit on the longer side. Was driver heavy. We saw, I think, over 80% driver usage. And we'll show it to you. It's an easy ball striking test. So you can see here, it was easy to gain, very easy to gain off the tee, very easy to gain on approach. So while missing the fairway was penal, overall, I mean, slightly, it says average. It was easy to hit the fairways. So again, fairly easy ball striking test. For the most part, scrambling. Everything was fairly on the easy side. The only thing that kind of punched back a little bit, I guess, would have been lag putting. Some deeper putting seemed to be a little bit difficult. Again, I could show you some of those numbers. Some of the corollary courses have been some of the other Canadian Opens, Oakdale, Hamilton. Then we get into Quail. Again, you're going to get into maybe some like longer par 70s. Again, when you start to see Detroit, Craig Ranch, Mexico, TBC Twin Cities, Philly Cricket played a little bit more difficult, but again, it was a little bit longer par 70. So that's where you start to get some of the correlation there. Tricky to see 1 year data. So for the most part, again, you can see we start with a par 5, and you got to get a birdie out of the gates. 58% birdie rate on the first hole. So just one par. You bookend it. You get one to start, and you get one to finish. And again, we saw that 18th hole a lot because we had, a playoff here that went back and forth. So we had a lot of looks of that playoff hole, that 18th hole. So birdies to be had out there. But again, some of the longer par 4s here too. A bunch of par 4s north of 500 yards. A couple that they could set up to be drivable, both on the front and the back side. The 12th hole, and then I believe it was the 6th hole. A little bit of a shorty too. So you could see some guys being a little bit aggressive there. But here we are off the tee. We saw driver usage, 81.5%. So significantly above a PGA Tour average event at 70%. Accuracy was above that as well. Good drives. So again, keeping yourself in play, giving yourself basically, it's a little bit of a combination of approach and, and off the tee. So that was a little bit of easier than tour average. We did see most of the, misses. You could see a little bit of a right tendency lean versus a left tendency lean. Again, could be really noisy, just a 1 year sample of data to see if there's anything in that. Again, I'm not typically leaning and doing any research in terms of right tendency or left tendency, but if it starts to show itself as a year over year trend, then maybe we can look at, exploiting that next year. But I wouldn't make too much of it. It just caught my eye because we don't typically see that much of a gap. You get into the approach stuff. You can see greens and reg was high. Again, 72% versus a standard event at 66%. Again, up from the fairway, pretty flat from the rough. Overall proximity is a little bit tighter. Again, you'll see that kind of play out in the approach shot distribution range here, which we have. Again, overall slightly below in terms of distance, about 5 yards shorter on average. And you can see that play out here in your total from 50 to 125, about 5.5% higher. And your total from 125 to 150, same thing, about 4% higher. So you have roughly, again, a little vary based off of player, but roughly, 47% of your approach shots coming from less than 150. And where we see most of the distribution on a standard PGA Tour event in the 150 to 175 and the 175 to 200, those are both sizably below PGA Tour average event. So again, 150 to 175 is typically 20%. Last year here, it was below 13%. 175 to 200 is right around 19%, and that was around 12 last year. So some of the guys that, if you're looking at rolling approach, you could have a guy that's, playing really well, but a lot of his work comes from, these longer approach ranges, and that isn't necessarily what gets rewarded here. We just don't get as much of that. So we do have a decent amount of 200 plus, slightly above a standard PGA Tour average, and most of that is actually right here in the 200 to 225 range. So it's not even like a lot of real long ones. Those are actually a little bit, slightly, again, 225 to 250. When you get into like the 250 plus stuff, that's actually a little bit below average. So that can be tied up into some of these little bit longer par threes. Again, we got a shorty on the par threes, but the other three I think are decent size. So I am wanting to look a little bit at wedge play. I'm going to look at approach stuff. I'm not modeling wedge play in particular, but I want to look at it. I put it in my model. And that's something you could do too. You could put stats in your model process, but you just don't have to give it any weight. But if you want to look at it and say, like, these are the stats that I think are really important, but I also want to look at this piece of it too when I'm making some like start sit decisions, or I'm making some like, final betting card decisions. But that data is all there for you. You don't have to go back and forth in the rabbit hole. So I can show you what I did with that too. Around the green play, again, when you have scoring this low and when you have greens and reg this high, I'm not getting too caught up in around the green play because I just don't find it to be super duper predictive in terms of trying to pick a winner. Because again, I think you got to be hitting greens and reg at a pretty high rate. See, we talked about putting a little bit harder from the longer putts. And again, you see a little bit lower one putt rate, a little bit higher on the three putts from 25 plus, but again, negligible. And again, that could be just a single year sample. So be interested to see where that tracks. So I'm not counting that too much in any modeling here. So you can see PGA Tour average scoring at 70.5. Last year we were at 68.75 here. Birdie or better rate a little bit higher from the fairway, a little bit below average on the rough, but like you needed to score here. You got to get it done. Let's look from a strokes gain standpoint on the leaderboard and see how people got it done here. You see we had the Burns Foxy playoff. Fox, I was driving home from Nashville and making my wife watch live on her phone to keep me updated on the Fox and Burns playoff, which is electric. So that felt good. Long weekend in Nashville paid for by Ryan Fox. Thank you so much. You can see here, this kind of goes into where the around the green play. No one towards the top was doing much of anything around the green. It really didn't matter. I think you needed to really get it done tee to green, ball striking in particular. For the most part, those guys up here, unless you were like just starting to putt your face off. This is where we started to really start to see this new version of Cam Young too. He had that momentum off of qualifying on Monday at golf's longest day, that 5-man playoff. He took that seat, rolled it over to a nice weekend in Canada, and kind of took off from there. No looking back for Cam Young. But you could see, a lot of these guys are getting it, a lot of distance here with Fox, Burns, you, and Cam. Ben On was in here getting it done. So you could see an Andrew Putnam, not long, played really well from an approach standpoint, made a whole bunch of putts. David Skin's not super long, but then you get, a Cam Champ popping up here, Ludwig, but Shane Lowry's not long off the tee. So, again, I think I would lean distance, but I also do think that there's some leverage opportunities, both in the outrights, both in finishing positions, and definitely in DFS, where I think the bomber narrative may be over leveraged this week, if that makes sense. So don't feel that you have to lock into it. I'm going to model it as being important, but I think that, again, we only have 1 year. We thought it was going to play bombers heavy. It did play bombers heavy. But if you look at this leaderboard, Matt McCarty's not hitting the ball a mile. Again, Putnam, Shane, like there's some good golf to be played for guys that are, not necessarily just bombing it out there. So let's take a look at some of the stuff in the rabbit hole. Actually, I'll pull up my model and we'll go from there. Or let's see, I want to show you we'll look at rolling averages to start. These guys are playing well right now. Strokes gained total. Last 8 rounds, Wyndham Clark's kind of leading the pack here for the most part for the last little bit. Eric Cole's playing really good golf. I mean, this is really solid. Last 50 rounds. It feels a little bit recent with Eric Cole, but it's actually not. You can see the data here. He's 5th in strokes gained total here the last 50 rounds. So he continues to knock on the door. Did it again last week. Aaron Rye, obviously getting a nice little bump off of, playing well in Myrtle and then winning the PGA Championship. Burns, he's been playing well. Again, one of the class players in the field. Same thing for Tommy. Zach Boshu's playing really well. You can see here over the last 12 rounds, last 8 rounds, even the last, 50, 30 rounds, Boshu's playing really well. Justin Rose, again, really fine, always impossible to model. But because he's just so hot and cold, can obviously go out and win a major championship. I think none of us would be surprised. But I also have a hard time clicking him at price in these non-signature, non-big events. Stephen Fisk playing well. Last 20, 7th in the field, strokes gained total. Chris Wrighton, good at the game, playing well, continuing to contending at different styles of golf courses. But again, playing well on longer golf courses, obviously winning at Quail, showing up last week at Memorial, and we have another long golf course this week. Alex Noren, steaming up the leaderboard last week as well at Memorial, playing really good golf. Another guy that doesn't hit it far, but shows up often at longer golf courses. So numbers a little short for Noren, but he's also a very streaky golfer. If you look at Noren historically, he pieces together these just runs of awesome golf. And then he's just in the wilderness for a little bit and he can't find it and then comes back and then we'll just string together really good golf. So he's definitely a form guy and seems to be currently in some solid form. Keith Mitchell, kind of fine, not necessarily competing or, I guess top of the leaderboard on Sunday, late Sunday tee times, not so much, but playing pretty good golf. Just cash game style play for DFS. Rico, Jay Ewert, Johnny Kiefer, Michael Brennan, Brooks Koepka. These guys are all playing some really good golf. Jackson Super playing really good golf. So this rolling trends is nice just to kind of take a look at, hey, can you put some filtering on it if you want, but you want to get a sense of, who's kind of in some recent form. It's a good way to look at it. But I'm going to bring up my model here. You can see we got, again, you can look at expert models, click in there, and you can get a lot of great chart models from other folks in the space. If if you find that modeling yourself is maybe a little bit intimidating and you don't want to, you don't know how to weigh things, you don't know what stats to put in. Again, that's why we tried to build the player or the course page this way. So it kind of gives you a sense of, some different filtering options that you could put on. And again, I would do 1 or 2 filters at a time. Don't go in here and go into the rabbit hole and look at, okay, I'm going to look at easy scoring conditions. I'm going to look at easy scoring conditions on bent grass fairways with long rough and driver heavy. You're going to way over filter it. Start to do some things that correlate together so that you could look at this week. This is easy scoring conditions and a long golf course. Well, maybe look at who's played well on average, easy, and very easy scoring conditions on average, long, and very long golf courses. So you start to widen your sample a little bit and they kind of play themselves out together where it makes sense. I want to look at these stats because they kind of tell a similar story. I'm weeding out hard golf tests. I'm weeding out short golf courses. I want to see who's played well when birdies are on the menu and the course is a little bit long. And then from there, you can maybe look at, okay, we'll look and see who's played well. We go back to like the ball striking test. So it's very easy for both off the tee and approach. We'll look at very easy and easy off the tee and look at very easy and easy on approach, and then see who's played well then. Look at strokes gained total, look at strokes gained ball striking, look at strokes gained tee to green in those scenarios, right? You're putting a couple things together, but they make sense as a story when you're trying to look at the stats. If you start to just jam too many filters, too many things, too many views, you're going to find yourself with, we get emails like, I looked at Ron's preview, I looked at all the filters, and there's no data. And so, well, you're looking at a 6-month sample with 20 filters. Well, yeah, you'd be lucky to find 4 rounds of that. And that would not be very predictive. So if you have questions, reach out. It's why we try to do the shows this way. Share the screen. Andy and I try to do it on Tuesday the same way. Screen shares, let you look at the tools, see how to do it. Hopefully that helps. So that way you can kind of look at, same thing with these course metrics. There's different ways that you can go ahead and look at some things. So I'm going to bring up my model and I'll show you a little bit of what I did. Top of my model is Nikolai Hojgaard, Michael Thor Bjornsson, number 2, Wyndham Clark 3, Chris Wrighton 4, Tommy Fleetwood 5. So a little off market, and I kind of like when that happens. Like, I don't set out to build a model that's off market. This is not wildly off market. I mean, like, these guys are all right around 30 to 1, 35 to 1. Wyndham short of that. Wrighton's right there. Tommy's at the top of the board. Like, so these guys are towards the top of the board on the odds board. But I also am trying to find edges where maybe my data is different than where the market is, name value, all those things, so this is okay. And I like to see the gap of where there's some discrepancy. So you can see here, I'm leading on distance. I have both driving and carry. I had this in my model last year, and I think we had some weather here and they played a little soft. So I wasn't really sure what the best way to go about it was in terms of just pure driving distance or carry distance. Because obviously carry is, driving distance is going to be impacted by softer conditions, where carry is going to tell more of a pure distance story. You can see that play out here in some of the discrepancies in the numbers for guys too. So like, Wyndham hits it high. So his carry distance actually tells a better story in terms of how far he hits it versus his driving distance, because he probably gets less rollout, right? Depending on what his loft setting is, right? All these things can impact these things. So I'm looking at both carry and driving. And again, if you want to pick one, that's fine. I still wanted to weigh it basically around 20%. I have par 4, birdie or better. But I'm putting on a little bit of, long par 4s. So I'm looking at long and very long golf courses over the last 12 months who's, made some birdies there in those scenarios. Again, par 70, we have 2 fewer par 5s, to get your scores in. And again, we were at 18 under last year. So that's low scoring for a par 70 where you don't have those extra par 5s. So I really want to see you making birdies on par 4s. So we're looking at that here. I'm looking at a little bit of putting. I looked at, again, 5% collectively for putting, and that's typically the max of what I look at putting. I'm looking here both at just, again, last 6 months putting, no filtering, and then I put on the bent POA split, but the putting surfaces that we have here. So, and I added solo bent because it's a little bit more pure and a little bit more like what we have. So looking at that, and again, just who's rolling it well and who actually rolls it well on this surface. So then I'm looking at some other big, probably some big picture filtering metrics. Strokes gained total here. This is easy ball striking. So like we talked about, I'm looking at easy to gain on approach. Again, easy, very easy and average, and the same thing off the tee. But really, I filtered it out to the last 2 years, but I'm really looking at the last 36 rounds. So over the last 36 rounds, who's been the best in ball striking when the test has been easy. And that's why you get some of the guys here towards the top of the board are on the model. Hojgaard, Mac Meisner, Michael Thor Bjornsson, Chris Wrighton, Johnny Kiefer, Michael Brennan, Zach Boshu, Seabez, Alec Fitz, and Tommy Fleetwood. Those guys have been good ball striking when it's been easy, or tee to green. I'm sorry, when it's been easy. Right? Is this? Oh, this is just tee to green first. I'm sorry, I was here. I filtered that wrong. This is what we were just looking at. This was the easy ball striking guys. My fault. I slid it. Harry Hall, Nikolai Hojgaard, Tommy Fleetwood, Mac Meisner, Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark, Michael Thor Bjornsson, Matt Fitzpatrick, Ricky Castillo, and Garrick Higo are your top. Strokes gained tee to green. This is just kind of the main thing that I'm capturing in recent form. This is last 24 rounds, no filtering, just tee to green who's playing well right now. And it gets a big chunk of the model. Because again, I just want to pull in some recent form. So Matt Fitzpatrick, Chris Wrighton, Brooks Koepka, Doug Gim, Aaron Rye, Alex Fitz, Nikolai Hojgaard, Colin Morikawa, Justin Rose, Wyndham Clark. This strokes gained total, this is long and easy courses. So I'm looking at the last 50 rounds. I'm basically looking at 2026. Most guys are not giving 50 rounds in this sample, but they're getting roughly 24 to 30, which is I'm totally comfortable with. On long, very long, and average course length with easy, very easy, and average scoring conditions. So kind of what I touched on at the top. So who's played well under these scenarios, these course conditions? Nikolai, Mac Meisner, Thor, Wrighton, Kiefer, Brennan, Boshu, Seabez, Fitz, Tommy. Looking at long and easy courses last 12 months. So again, kind of the same, but a little bit of a different sample. To kind of reward guys with a longer sample here. Nikolai Hojgaard again, Tommy Fleetwood, Seabez, Thor, Brennan, Mac Meisner, Wrighton, Kevin Yu, Rico Hoey, Matt Fitzpatrick. Those guys are all right there. Strokes gained par 4. So I looked at par 4 birdie, and now I'm going to look at we didn't have strokes gained par 4 last year, but we do now. So I'm looking at strokes gained par 4 last 6 months. Average, easy, very easy scoring conditions. So again, you got to make way on par 4s here because we have 2 fewer of the par 5s. And again, you can look at the guys, we'll reverse engineer this, cross some names off. Who don't I want to look at based off of, who's struggling? Brooks, Shane, Paul Waring, Stephen Fisk, Alex Noren, Seabez, Bridgman, Nikolai Hojgaard, Ryan Fox, Sam Ryder, your top strokes gained par 4 scorers here so far in 2026. Now here, I put in some of these approach shot distribution ranges that we looked at earlier when we were looking at the core stats page, right? We saw around 47% from 50 to 125 or so. And that's significantly above a PGA Tour average. So I have those here, 50 to 100 and then 100 to 150. Wedges. Who's dialed with the wedges? And then we also have a slightly decent amount from the 200 plus. So again, we have some of those long par 5s. So I want to look at those things here, but I did not weigh them at all in the model. Part of it is because, right, what I'm doing here is I'm looking at, when we look at it in the rabbit hole, let me show this to you here. And again, I love approach scoring opportunities. This is if you were an old Fantasy National member, opportunities gained. Opportunities gained was looking at inside 15 feet from any of these ranges. But what we have here is we have the ability to look at inside 5, inside 10, and inside 15. So the tricky part with modeling this is, like if I look here, I put a minimum round feature, get some of these smaller sample guys out. The trick with modeling it, which is a little bit tough, is like, I look here and we'll look at Camilo Villegas because he's tops. He is giving himself the highest rate of looks inside 15 feet from 50 to 100. Do I really want a high rate inside 15 feet from 50 to 100? I would expect a little bit better, right? Like not for us, but for these guys, I would expect them to hit at a pretty high rate. But because there's some guys that are like maybe better at throwing real darts, like let's look at here. Lucas Glover's been great. Danny Willett's been great. Toasty's been great. Like Jordan Smith's been awesome, right? Inside, getting looks inside 5 feet. But if I were to model inside 15 feet, he's not going to get rewarded for that. So I kind of just like picked a couple of stats. I hope, does that make sense? Because same thing, if I go to 100 to 150, like it's been great for Ekro. But it's been great for him across the board. Doug Gim's been great here, but not as good down here. Right. So it's really hard, like, unless you're going to put all of them in to model it that way, it gets a little bit tricky. So I kind of looked at, from 200 plus, I think inside 15 is great. But, when we're inside 50 to 100, I'd kind of rather you be inside 10 feet. So I wanted to look at that. Backed out to inside 15 for here. So it's hard for me to model it, but I wanted to have it on the screen to look at. So if I can see guys that model well for me, and I can go and look at, these guys are really good. He's a really good wedge player, or really good long iron player. That makes sense. So that's how I built my model this week, at least the first run through. You see some guys that are, look at cross some names off too. And I like to look at this once we get the DFS salaries up. You could sort by DFS salary and see, who's an easy name to cross off. Or vice versa. Like this guy is way higher up on my model compared to where he is relative to his peers in DraftKings pricing. Maybe that's a guy that I want to take a look at. Maybe that's a guy I need to be, wary of based off of where his ownership is going to be. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But a pretty solid edge here. And this model score is based on 100%. So you can see where there are gaps in the model. So you can see here, Colin Morikawa was 11th in the model, but it's pretty flat to, where he is point total, less than, 4 and change from where Wrighton is at 4. So this is a very bunched up group in the model. And that makes sense. Even here, there's not a lot of separation all the way down to, Hovland and Noren down at 21 in the model, from where these guys are right here into the top 5 in the model. So it is a hard board to kind of suss through a little bit here on a Monday morning, because there's some guys that I like, some prices that I don't mind, and a lot of guys that I think could fit this course based off of what I think matters here and based off of some of these players' recent form. So hope that helps. Appreciate everyone hanging out as always. Again, enjoy golf's longest day. Some again, let me see. I think we'll get a little bit of coverage on it here too. See some decent names and some guys that are not in the field this week. Like, Webb Simpson, Lucas Glover. We got both President's Cup captains, Jeff Ogilvy and Brandt Snedeker, trying to qualify. Finau needs to qualify. Potgieter. So you got some of these guys that are, in Ohio, but then playing in Canada. Then you got some guys in the Canadian one too. Homa's teeing it up here in Canada this week, and he's going to be at the Canadian qualifier here this morning. Rasmus is obviously, Nikolai is in the field. Rasmus is trying to get himself into the US Open. Ricky Castillo is in the Canadian Open field this week and is trying to punch his ticket. Kevin Na trying to qualify for the first time in a long time. Blocky's here. Thor Bjornson's trying to get in. Blades Brown. So some interesting names. Some guys trying to get in. Boshu trying to get in. So yeah, a lot of interesting ones here this week trying to get into golf's longest day. So check it out. Should be a good day of golf. So again, appreciate everyone hanging out as always. Subscribe to Betsperts Golf, promo code Canada, Betsperts Golf for a week for $1. That's it. So betspertsgolf.com/plans, promo code Canada. Check it out for $1. It's great. You do it a little bit later today on a Monday afternoon or a Tuesday. That week's going to carry you into a little bit of next week. Get you into a little bit of our Shinnecock coverage for next week's US Open. So check it out. Again, head over to the site. Take advantage. If you have any questions when you're playing around with the rabbit hole, hit us up. Let us know. Again, we have a ton of other tools as well on the site. DFS Optimizer, matchup tool. You want to bet 3 balls, head-to-heads. You could put in the odds. We'll give you break-even rates, expected value to see if there's anything for you to play. Obviously, you get access to our Discord where our staff pops plays in there as well. I know that's hard to tail, outrights from, 3 different guys. And then we got Mayo putting outrights as well. It's fine, but it's there for you if you want it, right? It could be confirmation bias for guys that you were looking at betting, or, you can tell us why we're donkeys. You guys will do that anyway. It's fine. Also, do whatever you want. Bet whoever you want. Live your life. Do your thing. Appreciate everyone hanging out as always. Appreciate the support as always too. Again, thumbs up in the channel and the video. And